I decided to make a series of videos on activism after last month I was at a conference full of academic Marxists, which both renewed my Marxism and reminded me what I hate about a lot of Marxists. This video is just a quick introduction to practical activism because I have limited patience for the purely theoretical. Other videos will deal with more specific things and maybe even more abstract topics, but I'm willing to take suggestions and comments. Firstly, I'd say that blind action, or activism for activism's sake, is self-indulgent and meaningless. Your job isn't done when you come up with a good slogan or a catchy hashtag, as important as those things can be. Publicity is a great tool to have, but it's not the outcome, that's not your endgame. The goal is always change, and publicity can just help you achieve that. Secondly, educate yourself. Sometimes half of activism is just being aware of the realities of inequality. If an issue doesn't affect you directly, listen to those it does, listen to their experiences and support them. The internet is an amazing resource for learning and getting in touch with people, but remember, please check your sources. Recently I was so guilty of this. I think I was getting really frustrated with the situation in America and I passed on some pieces of misinformation about the situation in Ferguson, which only harms the cause I'm trying to support. So speaking from experience, please do fact check. Thirdly, and maybe most obviously, protest. There are two main kinds of protest: reactive and proactive. Reactive protests are kind of like what we're seeing in the States right now in Ferguson and New York. They happen after an event. There's a catalyst which sparks a huge wave of public reaction. We're seeing there's actually a lot of it happening in the world right now. We're in a particular few years with a lot of reactive protest. And reactive protests are so important, not just because of the events that spark them, though those are important as well, but because they can often bring people who weren't activists and would never have been active politically before into community and political groups. They often are the most strong, the most passionate, but there's a danger of them fizzling out, there being a lot of anger and not much change. That's where proactive protest comes in. Proactive protest is when you shape a campaign to target a certain issue. There's always a step two, and there's always a goal. So the first is protest, get a bit of publicity. Second is education. Third is actual change. That's where you're trying to get elected representatives to actually change a piece of legislation or change a policy. Sometimes the change is more abstract, it's societal, it's mental, and that's much harder to measure, but it's still technically a goal. Now you can plan a proactive protest with no reactive element. So say if you want to target the fact that in 49 of America's 50 states, the fact that you were surprised that someone was transgender is actually a legitimate defense to use in court for murdering them, you might shape a campaign, come up with a title for this campaign, hold a protest and call on people to contact their elected representatives, or they might have some sort of video series where trans people speak about their experiences of harassment or assault. You can even couple reactive protests with proactive protests. Now this sometimes happens when you were thinking of a proactive protest and something happens that sparks reactive protesting, or say in the case of Ferguson, reactive protests began after the killing of Mike Brown, and a proactive campaign which came out of that was the call for police officers to be federally mandated in the States to wear body cameras. In the wake of Eric Garner's killing, people have sort of lost faith in that body camera campaign idea, because here's an example of something has been on camera, we see video evidence, and that still hasn't led to an indictment. So people are, I think, looking for now a second step two. I'm using a lot of American examples. I suppose I just have the Black Lives Matter campaign really clear in my mind right now, so that's where a lot of my examples are coming from. Stay aware, don't be afraid to realize you were wrong about something, keep educating yourself, but don't take information for granted. Double check, see if you can find it coming from multiple sources, and good luck!